All righty, we are recording now. We're going to sing the Sea of Galilee, and then everybody can unmute. I think I can see everybody's pictures tonight because we don't have very many people online with us. So I hope a lot of people are going to watch the video. So get your fingers ready. Everybody ready? Here we go. There's a Sea of Galilee. There's a Sea of Galilee. There's a sea. There's a sea. There's a Sea of Galilee. There's a boat in the Sea of Galilee. There's a boat in the Sea of Galilee. There's a boat. There's a boat. There's a boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are men. There are men. There are men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are hands on the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are hands on the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are hands, there are hands, there are hands on the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are nets, there are nets, there are nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. Here come the fish. There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. There are fish, there are fish, there are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. Very good. I've been watching Harper and she's getting all of those motions. We're going to go real fast now. So you ready? There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. There are fish, there are fish, there are fish in the nets in the hands of the men in the boat in the Sea of Galilee. Good job. All righty. Very good. Okay, we got somebody else coming in. You guys can all unmute if you want to. I gotta have some water. Just make sure if you're not answering a question that you are quiet because the speakers will pick up everything we're saying and it messes up and makes it where people can't hear very well. I believe Kingston came in. Good job, Kingston. You missed our song, but you can go back and watch it on the video if you want to. All right, so we have been talking about learning how to be followers of Jesus. That's why our bulletin board says, let's go. Because we want to learn how to be followers of Jesus, and we're very lucky because when Jesus was teaching his followers how to be good followers, excuse me, some of them wrote it down. And so we have it in our Bibles and we can learn how to be good followers of Jesus too. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this. Can anybody tell me what this word says and what we talked about?
Pray.
Pray. That's right. Did Jesus teach his followers how to pray?
Yes.
Yes. And what are you doing when you pray? Who are you talking to?
Jesus.
Yes, and God. Very good. Do you have to use big fancy words?
No.
No, because God understands all of our words. He even knows what we're thinking and what's in our heart, even if we can't think of the right words to say. So we can be followers of Jesus by praying. God loves for us to pray to him. And then last week, we talked about this barn and this word. Who can see what that says?
Share.
Share, that's right. Well, do we need to share our barns? Is that why we have a picture of a barn on our bulletin board? Tell me what that barn makes us remember.
The foolish man who had a lot of grain and his barns weren't big enough, and another person told him he had to split it, and he just said, no, I'm just gonna make my barns bigger.
That's right. He had a big crop, had a lot of grain, and he said, I'll just tear down my barns and make bigger barns. But did Jesus say that was a good answer?
Nope.
No.
And he died that night.
He did die that night. He didn't get to use any of that grain. What would have been a better answer? What would have been a better idea than to just put it in bigger barns?
Share.
To share. There would be lots of people that probably needed food to eat, and he needed to share. And that's what Jesus was teaching us, to be good followers by sharing. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about this. You can see I've got a little figure of a person up here. We'll talk about what's going to happen. Can anybody see that word right there? Kind of hard to see. That word says help. So we're going to talk about being good helpers tonight. But let me tell you about the story. It's in Luke, who wrote a lot of stories in the Bible. In fact, Luke was a doctor. He was not one of the 12 disciples, but he was a follower of Jesus. And he wrote a lot of things in the Bible to help us learn about Jesus. And this was one of the stories that he wrote. He said that one day someone came up to Jesus and he said, "Teacher," that's what they call Jesus a lot of times, "what do I need to do to be able to live forever?" And so Jesus said, "Well, what does God's word say?" And the man answered, and he said that I should love God and that I should love my neighbor as much as I love myself. And Jesus said, "That's right." And then the man said, "But who is my neighbor?" We kind of have that question sometimes too. We think of our neighbor as being the person that lives next door, right? Is that what we think of when we say neighbor?
Yes.
But Jesus said our neighbors are way more than that, more than the people that live next door. So he told a story, which is what Jesus did a lot of times to teach a lesson, because people can listen to stories really well and they can learn from them. And Jesus told a story about a man who was traveling along the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, I don't know exactly how far that is, but he probably was walking, because that people back then didn't have cars, and the Bible doesn't mention any kind of donkey or anything. So he was probably walking, and something really bad happened to him. There was a bunch of guys who jumped out and robbed him. They took his money, probably took his clothes, most of them, and they beat him up. And they just left him on the side of the road thinking, well, he'll just die. You know, and so that's what they did. They just beat him up and left him on the side of the road, took everything he had and just left him there. So he was helpless. There was nothing he could do. He was hurt, probably bleeding, and he couldn't have gotten up and gone for help. He didn't have cell phones like we have now. So he was just helpless. Well, pretty soon a man came walking along the road. And this man was a priest. Does anybody know what a priest is?
No.
No, we don't really use that word much, do we? Well, the priest would have been someone who was a teacher in the temple. So he would be kind of like the preacher at church or the teachers at church. So surely he was a religious man. He was a teacher or a preacher. Surely he stopped to help this man, right? Do you think he did? He did not. When he saw the man laying by the side of the road, he just kind of tiptoed over to the other side of the road and went on by. He just didn't have time. He didn't want to mess with it, and he just went on by. Well, that's not what we would expect from somebody who teaches and preaches about God, is it? So a few minutes later, another man came along, and he was a Levite. And we don't use that word either. But the Levites were people who helped the priests in the temple and did things in the temple, helped take care of things, helped with like the worship. So that would be like the other people that work at our church building. And so surely he stopped to help the man. Do you think? He did not. He did not stop to help the man. He just moved over to the other side of the road and walked on by. So he didn't even get very close to the man. And so then somebody else came along. And this was a person from the country of Samaria. We call people that are from Samaria Samaritans. And most of the Jewish people did not like Samaritans. They just didn't want anything to do with them. They thought they were all bad people. They didn't want anything to do with the Samaritans. So nobody that Jesus was telling this story to would have thought that this person would stop to help the man. But guess what? He is the one who stopped to help the man. And the Bible says that he washed his wounds and he cleaned him up and bandaged him. And then he put him on his donkey. So this man did have a donkey. And, and he took him to the next little town where there was an inn, which is kind of like a hotel. And he went in and he took care of him all night, kept keeping his wounds clean, trying to keep him from having fever. You know what things you do when somebody's sick or hurt. And then the next morning, the Samaritan needed to go on to wherever he was traveling to. And so you know what he did? He took his money and he gave money to the innkeeper, the person who ran the inn or the hotel. And he said, I want you to take care of this man while I'm gone. And when I come back, if you have had to spend more money than I'm leaving with you, I will pay you back. Now, Jesus finished his story and he asked the people, now which one was a good neighbor to the man who was hurt? Which one do you think?
The third one.
The third one. Yes, it wasn't the priest. It wasn't the Levite. It was the Samaritan, because he stopped and helped the man. And Jesus said, I want you to be good neighbors like that person. Jesus wants us to help take care of other people who need our help. So that's kind of what our lesson is tonight, is to help people. Now, my little guy on the bulletin board, let's pretend he's hurt. And I have this little thing, which is a little first aid kit. There's all kinds of things in here. There's a little booklet that tells me how to use things. There's something I can make a cold compress with. There's wipes in case somebody was hurt and fell and hurt their knee and we needed to wipe that off and get it clean. There's ointment, which is like salve to make it better. There's all kinds of things in here. You might have something like this that you keep in your car. Mom or dad sometimes will have one they keep in their car in case somebody gets hurt. And so you got all these things inside this little first aid kit. Now, the Samaritan man would not have had a first aid kit, but he did have some things he could use to help take care of the man. So let's pretend that my man up here is hurt. What do I need to put on him to help take care of him? A Band-Aid. You're right. If we were in the classroom, I would give everybody Band-Aids and let them put on them. So I've got a Band-Aid right here. Lydia, where do I need to put this Band-Aid on him, do you think?
On his arm.
On his arm. Okay, I'm going to put it right there on his arm. Good job. All right, I've got another Band-Aid, a nice pink one. Who can tell me another place to put this Band-Aid on this man? You may want to unmute. Emmy, where do you think I should put this one?
On his knee.
On his knee. I bet he did hurt his knee. Good job. All right. So I've got another one. This one's kind of little. Who else can talk to me? Where do you think this one needs to go?
On his leg.
On his legs. I think I heard Kingston. What did you say, Kingston?
On your toe.
On his toe. Okay. Let's see if I can get it down low enough to be on his toe. That's about as close to his toe as I can get. All right, I've got one more. Somebody tell me where this one needs to go.
His head.
Up on his head? I bet he probably did hurt his head. So we'll put one right up here on his head. There we go. So now he's got some Band-Aids on him, and that can help us remember about the man who was hurt and the Good Samaritan who stopped to help him. And that's what Jesus said we need to do. We need to be helpful. And that's a way we follow Jesus. Now, we don't always stop and help somebody next to the side of the road. We don't always see somebody hurt on the side of the road the way this man did. And that would be a mom and dad decision about that too. But there are other things we can do to help people. And sometimes it's easy to be a helper, and sometimes it's hard to be a helper. So I'm going to read some questions, and I want you to shout out. You can unmute. I want you to shout out if this would be an easy time to help or if it might be a hard time to help. So are you ready? Here's the first one. It says, your teacher needs help carrying some toys to the playground. But if you don't hurry, you will not get a swing for recess. Would that be an easy time to help your teacher or a hard time? Shout it out. What do you think? Easy or hard?
Easy.
Sometimes it's easy to help, and you might not care so much about that swing. But if you really, really wanted to swing, it might be hard to help the teacher instead because it would take up your time. Okay, here's another one. It says, your little sister lost her shoe. Your family can't go to the park until she finds it. Would that be an easy time to help look for your sister's shoe or a hard time?
Hard.
Hard? Because you really want to go, don't you? But guess what? You can't go until the shoe is found. So that might make it easy because you want to find that sister's shoe so y'all can go to the park, right? Okay, here's the next one. Oh, this one's really hard. Think about this one. There is a boy at school who hits the other kids and is mean to them. He's kind of a bully. He accidentally spilled all his crayons and needs help picking them up. What do you think? Would you help him?
Would you help?
Yes. Sometimes we need to help people who might not even be the nicest people. Jesus just wants us to be good helpers. All right, here's a good one. It says, you are at the store with your mom. A lady in a wheelchair needs help to reach a box of cereal from the bottom shelf. Could you be a helper to that lady?
Yes.
Yes, you could definitely be a helper. She might not be able to reach it, but you could, and you could be a very good helper. Okay, I'll do one more. While you are playing with a new toy, your mom asks you to answer the phone because she is busy putting your baby brother to bed. Would that be an easy time to help? You might miss some of your favorite cartoon. I think we could still help mom though, right? Especially now on TVs now, you can back it up and see whatever you missed. So you really wouldn't even miss anything. So sometimes it's easy to help and sometimes it's a little bit harder. But if we want to be followers of Jesus, we want to learn to be good helpers. All right, let's talk about your activities. Oh, wait, let's back up. First, let's do our memory verse. I don't want to forget it. It's the same one we've been doing. It's a very good memory verse. So I'm going to read it, and then you can say it after me. Ready? It says, I am the way,
I am the way,
the truth,
the truth,
and the life.
and the life.
No one comes to the Father
Except through me.
except through me. Somebody got ahead of me. They said the end of it before I even got to the end of it. Very good. You guys are learning that verse very well. All right. I know some people have already been working on their worksheet for tonight. It has lots and lots of squiggly lines because we're trying to figure out which one of these people is the one that helped the man. Oops, I can't get my finger there. The man down here that's hurt. So you can take your finger or a pencil or a crayon and follow those squiggly lines and figure out which one was the man who helped the hurt man. And we know from the Bible that it was the Samaritan, right? Oh, looks like Heidi's already been working on hers. I see it. Very good. And I know Ender and Lydia were working on theirs earlier too. All right. See if you can follow those squiggly lines. Excuse me. Our craft tonight is a little different. It's not a normal craft. You might have a whole page, or they might already be cut apart, but once you color them and cut them apart, you have a bunch of little pieces of paper, and they're gonna be kind of like coupons, and there are different ways that you can be a good helper. So you can give these to your mom or your dad or your big brother or sister, somebody that needs your help. Like this one says, you will be a good helper by helping carry the groceries. I bet mom could use a good helper like that. And this one's a good helper by folding the laundry. Here's one, a good helper by dusting the furniture. Here's one, a good helper by washing the car. You have to wait till it gets a little warmer before we can do that, right?
Right.
Yeah, sweeping the sidewalk. Don't think we could do that right now either. Too much snow. Here's a good one. I bet some of you are good helpers and set the table. Put the plates and things on the table. And this is one that all of you can do. It says, be a good helper and pick up toys. All right, so you can color those and then save them until you're ready to give them to somebody that you want to be a good helper for. But we don't want to save them too long because Jesus wants us to be helpers. And our last activity in your bag tonight is your snack. And there's all kinds of things in this little bag. But there's also a little verse on the front that talks about all the things in the bag that help us remember who our neighbor might be. So get mom or dad or a big brother or sister or grandma or whoever's with you to read these different things that's on this. And you can find those things in your bag and remember about being a good neighbor, because our neighbor is not just the person who lives next door, right? Our neighbor is anybody that needs our help. So enjoy that snack. There's some sweet things, some salty things. I don't think any of you guys are allergic to milk. If you're allergic to milk, I didn't put M&Ms. I think the rest of you should be okay to eat what's in your bag. Milk was the only thing that would have been an allergy problem. All right. I think that's all. Yes, ma'am.
We're not allergic to milk.
You're not allergic to milk. You're allergic to peanut butter, though, right?
Lydia is. I'm not.
I thought so. I changed out one.
Mommy's not, but it just itches her. It makes her itch a lot.
Because one of the things it called for actually has peanut butter, and I switched it out and made it be something different that didn't have peanut butter because I didn't want anybody to get sick. I think Kingston may be allergic to peanuts too. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought there were a couple of people on my list that had peanut problems. So we don't put peanuts in our snacks. All right, that's all we've got for tonight. I'm going to count down to 3 and we will say goodbye to all the boys and girls that are watching online. get my computer all ready. There you go. And then we'll talk to each other just a little bit more before we have to get off the lesson tonight. So here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.